The dying days of pop culture. Hello and welcome to this week's video. This week I just kind of want to talk about pop culture in general and its slow apparent death, at least as far as I'm concerned. Now, the video I was originally going to do, I was actually going to do a video called Am I Even Really a Doctor Who Fan Anymore? Because Doctor Who certainly figures into it. But when I was thinking about talking about it, and I'm still going to talk about that in this video, I realized that Doctor Who is just a symptom of a much wider malaise that affects television, movies. It's just all to the point now that it's completely unappealing to me. And given the box office and ratings in general, it kind of doesn't look like it's just me. Now I know there are various factors for this, but some of the excuses seem a bit pathetic. I love I love the people have more choices nowadays. I love the idea that people before streaming only watched TV because they had nothing better to do. It's a very strange kind of argument that seems to come from either very young people who can't conceive of the fact that people did have hobbies besides just sitting down and watching something on the telly, and apologists for really terrible ratings. I think it was more that TV and that was actually entertaining once upon a time, and these days, not so much. Now let's start with Doctor Who, because that's what I was originally going to talk about. And I was just thinking the other day, can I even call myself a Doctor Who fan anymore? Because yes, I still love the original show, but the modern show, look, I've been wary of it almost from the start. I was generally happy with series 1, although even the second episode, The End of the World, that was like the first time where I almost had an allergic reaction to New Who, because it was set up like a murder mystery, like something like The Curse of Peladon or something. It was an extremely lamely done one, and I was like, ew, this is a bit, ew. Though it was really serious too when I really started to go off the whole thing, and I went up and down on that show. I mean, I was close to not stopping watching in like 2008 if we hadn't heard that Davis and Tennant were leaving and we were going to get Moffat running it and a new Doctor, which kind of okay, I'll stick around for that. And I was reasonably happy with series 5. Still think it's the best season they've ever done actually on New Who, even though it's still full of New Whoisms that tend to irritate. But certainly again, it didn't last, and certainly from like 2012, I was just going off it very much. And I've said before, I initially stopped watching towards the end of series 8 with the Missy reveal, because I could see clearly where that was going. I only kind of relented and watched series 9 like 2 years after broadcast, because I'd started doing reviews on my channel. I had basically reviewed every season of Doctor Who, including the new ones, and people wanted me to do 9 and then 10 when it came on. And I thought, yeah, all right. I didn't particularly like 9. I probably like it a little bit more now than I did first watching it. 10 was okay. And then we had the Whittaker thing, which was just ridiculous. And I just like, no, I noped out. The fact that whole thing was just insane. The fact that just changing the gender of the Doctor after over 50 years for no reason other than to pander to political bigots was just so disgustingly offensive and retarded. And I think the way it was done was even worse, because maybe they could have gotten away with it, if they'd actually come up with a reason for it, rather than trying to pretend, oh, this was always the way. No, it wasn't. Stop gaslighting me. This is fucking bullshit. If it had some kind of reason for it, and I mean, what gets me is much like the 50th anniversary special, Day of the Doctor, had a perfect way to have like old doctors and companions in it via the moment, only to have it instead take the form of someone that the John Hurt Doctor didn't even know, which made no fucking sense whatsoever. They had the opportunity and they just blew it for some reason. They even had that opportunity with Capaldi's regeneration, because he effectively dies, and it's only Bill's kind of alien tears that bring him back. And you could easily have said that because it's Bill that did it, and it's mixed in with her now alien biology, that caused the gender change. I think most fans would have kind of okay, rather than no, the Time Lords were always like this. It's like no, they weren't. No, they weren't. Stop gaslighting us with bullshit. No, they weren't. And again, you'd have needed a better actress who knew what the hell she was doing, and a better writer that knew what the hell they were doing. But still, they could maybe have gotten away with it. As it was just complete fucking embarrassment, and I just noped out. No. I honestly think that if they ever did that, the time to do it was like the early 80s with J&T in charge, because he would have made sure it was the Doctor. He would have pretty much played down any kind of, the gender change would have been forgotten after 5 minutes, and you certainly wouldn't have had, a female Doctor under J&T running around going, oh, I've had an upgrade and all this fucking retarded bullshit. By that time, it was way too late. And of course, as I've covered before, I did contemplate coming back. I wasn't particularly thrilled with Davis coming back, because I thought his first era was pretty bad. But I'm like, okay, clearly, it certainly seemed like it was a rescue mission, like they were well aware that the show had completely tanked, and indeed had been axed, the BBC Wales version. And so I was like, yeah, okay. And we all know how that turned out. Just, again, complete disaster. Just doing the exact same thing again, only even more stupid, and expecting people to buy it. I don't get it. But again, I don't want to get into that, because I've talked about that before, so there's no point. But it's just like, Doctor Who just seems kind of an embarrassment now. It's a tired embarrassment, and basically a laughingstock. It's a laughingstock even within its own fandom, let alone the general audience, who are now just openly mocking it and ridiculing it. And quite rightly, because it's a joke. But this malaise is extended to other aspects, in the sense that, again, I've talked about the animations completely losing the plot and losing the point of why they were supposedly being done, to the point where I'm not even interested now, as well as the fact that they're not very good quality either. But it's like, even the original show, although basically the only item of merchandise I'm now picking up is the classic Blu-ray set, I'm not even watching the original show that much. I mean, part of that is because I've seen them all so many times. But there is no doubt that my enthusiasm for it has, as much as you try to separate them, my enthusiasm has been dented by what a complete joke it is now, by the whole thing. You can't help but feel the contamination of the modern garbage. I mean, last year I think I watched 4. I watched The Rescue, I watched Vengeance on Varos, and I watched a couple of Toms with Genesis and Revenge of the Cybermen. I enjoyed all of them. Even Revenge of the Cybermen, I really enjoyed them all. But still, 4 in a year? That's not very many. And this year, so far, I'm recording this at the end of May, I've watched 1, which was Earthshock, which was great, loved it, just as good as it ever was. Unfortunately, the following week I made the mistake of trying to watch Time Flight. Yikes, that traumatized me. But again, that's all I've watched this year so far. I have my shiny new Season 15 box set, and I love Season 15. I still haven't watched any of it as yet. I just never seem to be in the mood. And again, maybe that's not partly down to Doctor Who and partly down to other things, but... And of course, as I said at the beginning of this video, it's not just Doctor Who, it's everything. The whole of the pop culture landscape is now a moribund desert of things that I am simply not interested in. Now, whether that's partly down to the fact that I'm getting old, and or I don't know. I mean, they're openly saying these things aren't for you, because the problem is they don't seem to be for anybody, given that they're all tanking. But yeah, I mean, to me, I've said before, I felt movies kind of starting to change and go off the boil for me in the early 2000s. By the 2010s, they were really getting desperate, and in the 2020s, I'm just deeply. I can't think of a single thing I'm looking forward to at the cinema. I've been to the cinema twice so far this year. I didn't like either of them, despite them getting rave reviews, even from like YouTube critics. One of them I absolutely hated. The other one I just felt was mediocre at best. I won't say what they are because I'll talk about that in the end of year end of year overview if I do one, because there's not much to bloody talk about at the moment. But I mean, if you look back, like I mean, the 80s are glorious, but I mean, I didn't go to the cinema much as in the 80s because I was a kid. The 90s were the peak of my cinema going. I mean, I had a cinema just up the road, but there was so much stuff out that I wanted to see. I went to the cinema like every week in the 90s, sometimes more than once a week. That started to change in the early 2000s anyway. And then in like 2004, I moved, and even though it wasn't far, it meant I had to start catching buses to get to the cinema, which was a massive pain in the arse, and that dropped it off. But again, it also dropped it off by the fact that there wasn't enough stuff that was worth the effort. And the painful reality is 2012 I moved again, and again I had a cinema down the bottom of my road, and I still wasn't really going anymore. And now it's like again, the last as of 2 years ago, I have to catch a bus again, which is a major pain in the arse. But it's like there's nothing on. Even when you're like desperate and bored and want to get out of the house and do something, and I go look at what's on the cinema, and it's like it's not worth the bloody effort. There's nothing on. It's so crap. And television is similarly just dead. Because, I mean, regular TV is pretty much dead now. We don't have TV anymore. We have streaming. And I don't consider streaming shows to be the same thing as actual TV shows. And most of them are really piss poor as well. And even the odd one that's okay, it's more like some kind of like 4-part miniseries based on a book that's all right and entertaining, but you wouldn't watch it again. And again, that's not a TV show. That's not a real TV show. We don't have real TV shows anymore. And again, I'm like the 90s, even the early 2000s. The early 2000s, again, I felt were kind of going off already with movies. But up to and including 2004, I thought TV was still in great shape in the 2000s. And then 2005 on kind of started going a bit downhill, even though there were some warning signs in the early 2000s. 2005 it started going a bit downhill. In the 2010s it continued that trend to the point that by the last couple of years of like 2018, 2019, the only thing still going that I was still watching was the Peerless Elementary, which unfortunately finished in 2019. And the last 5 years now, 4.5 years, it's been a couple of short-lived Korean shows on Netflix and not much else. Proper TV, we're fucking dead. We've had like one Red Dwarf special, no series. There's nothing. There's nothing coming from America. There's nothing coming from the UK. There's nothing that I would have actually put on my shelf. It's dead. It's so dead. And it's just so depressing because this was my thing. I mean, from the point of a kid, movies and TV were my thing. Even before Doctor Who became a huge part of my life. Even before then, I was still into movies and I still had a lot of TV shows that I loved. And then the 90s positively exploded with TV that I absolutely adored. And now you look at it now and it's like, fuck me. What the hell happened? It's like and again, you've got these properties that they used to make so kind of easily and no-brainer, like Doctor Who, like Star Trek, and they can't even make them anymore. They can't even do them anymore properly. They're made by complete incompetence. who don't seem to have any understanding or love for what it is they're supposedly making. It's just, I just sit looking at it all going, I don't get it. I just don't get it. What is going on? Where did all the talent go? And I know there's lots of YouTubers who cover this, and the woke and diversity hires and all the rest in it. I'm just sat here going, what the fuck is going on? What's happened to the entertainment industry? What's happened to Doctor Who? What's happened to television in general? What's happened to movies? What's happened to all these things that I loved so much, which are now so bad? I'm just completely checked out. I am completely checked out of all of it. It's not just, am I even a Doctor Who fan anymore? Am I even a fan of movies and TV anymore? Not currently. Still watch a lot of old stuff. We just seem to be in a very sad state throughout the entirety of the entertainment system, certainly the entirety in the West. Because it's not just Doctor Who, it's not just even UK TV, it's American TV, it's everything and everywhere. And it's just endemic, and they keep throwing millions upon millions after rubbish that no one's interested in. Tired, divisive, poorly written crap that no one wants to watch. Anyway, I don't have an answer to you. I don't have an answer to this. And I've been making similar videos to this for the last 8 years. I think I made my first one in 2016 when I started doing reviews. I think there was one I made. I can't remember the title of it now. It was under the Reactionary Musings banner. And it's not gotten any better. In fact, it's gotten bloody worse in the last 8 years. I mean, 2016 when I made that, I think there were still a couple of shows on. There was still Elementary, obviously. There was still Person of Interest. There was still Pretty Little Liars. Now there's fuck all. There's literally bugger all on TV that I watch or care about anymore, which is unbelievable. I would never have believed it if you told me this 30 years ago, or even 20 years ago. I would never have believed it. And now it's just whatever. What DVD or Blu-ray can I watch, or what old thing is there to watch on streaming? It is a very, very sad state of affairs. Anyway, this is a slightly depressing video. I'll try and do something less depressing next week, but yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but at this point they've lost me completely. And I know some like, well, they're not after you anymore, they're after the young'uns, but they're not getting the young'uns by the look of it. Judging from the box office and the ratings on these things, the young'uns are just as disinterested as I am. Stop making crap. I don't know.